Hey, 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 guys! It's your girls, Keisha and Ivy, for another episode of Chat Chew and You, the interactive wellness show that promotes the concepts of self-care, holistic health, and confident, energetic living. Yes, we about that holistic, healthy life. So, we have a special guest today, our girl, Akila Richards, who's going to teach us how to unmute our self-expression and how our feelings weigh down our bodies. I know some of you guys probably feel that way or have before, so we're going to delve into that topic. I am excited. I hope you are excited. Say hey. Where's Akila? Where is she? All right, so while we wait to get Akila back, before we get started, this is Chat Chew and You. So I hope you have something to chew on while you're watching. And unfortunately, while I'm talking, I don't even have anything today. It's time. I tell you, time has just has flown by today, and I did not get a chance to even grab a snack. But I do have my water. I need to get that in. I got a whole other 32 ounces to go, so I'm chugging while we're talking tonight. What about you, Ivy?
I always have these unique varieties, right? So I have some chicken breast and it's a wild rice quinoa mix kind of thing going on.
It sounds delicious.
And then I have some red wine, and I have searched everywhere for this wine, guys. Okay, this is important to me, so I have to tell you, it's this sweet red wine from South Africa, and I had it one time at a wine tasting in Atlanta, and I have been searching for this wine for years, and I finally found it around here in the DMV. Hello, DC Metro area. And so I'm excited that I finally got it. So I poured me a glass before the show. And, of course, I have water nearby, too, because I always need that in my life.
Okay, all right. Now, if I see you chugging a bottle, there will be no judgment whatsoever.
Yeah, I left the actual bottle of wine in the refrigerator, and I just pour me, a sip. But, yeah, I'm excited that I found my wine.
Awesome. All right, so next time I see you and I'm in your area, you got to let me taste it. I'm not really a wine person, but
really?
You said it's good. I know. I don't really know much about wines or anything except I like sweet stuff.
Okay.
So, I don't know.
and red wines sometimes they're strong or they're really, really dry. And this is a sweet red wine. So this is for people who like yourself, like that sweet taste, but you get the benefit of the red wine. So
awesome.
It's cool wine.
Awesome. All right. I'll be sipping on some of that one of these days then.
Akila is here. She is back. I definitely want to tell you all that I was so excited to have her be a part of the show. When I read this article and the moment I saw that it was talking about expression, feelings, stifling your expression, muting, I already knew. I already knew who should be on this topic. So I reached out to Akila and I asked her was she feeling it, and she read it, and she definitely said that it resonated with her. So I said, hey, Keisha, what do you think about Akila being here? And she was definitely feeling it. So that's how Akila got here. I want her to explain to you all what she does as over on radicalselfie.com. And the website is actually up. If you're watching live, you can go ahead and click on the link and visit while you're watching the show. Akila, welcome. Can she hear me? She got stuck again.
Is she frozen? Frozen.
Yeah, she looks good frozen, though.
I know, right?
Because YouTube and Google are infamous for catching you on that really crazy frozen look where you have that your mouth is open or something like that.
Yeah, one eye closed, looking crazy. Right.
It all, whenever you get ready to get a YouTube cover, it's like they pick the craziest expression for the YouTube cover. I don't understand why that happens, but hey, such as YouTube, such as Google.
So I'll tell you what, until we get Akila back, as a matter of fact, first let's tell people I'm not even, hating or anything at this moment, but she is somewhere I would want to be. Right now I'm in St. Louis and it is freezing. And Akila over there with her tank top on is in warm weather.
Right.
In the Caribbean or something. Which is probably why her connection issues are a little iffy. But hopefully we get her back on so she can discuss the topic and everything with us. But tell me about the article that you read, Ivy. Let's start there then.
Okay, sure. The article was on Elephant Journal. I know if everyone is familiar with that website, and it was talking about the correlation between stifling our feelings, which would mean repressing our feelings, not using expression when it comes to our feelings, hiding them, hiding from other people, and how that's related to our relationship with our bodies, our body image, our health. So basically what the article was asserting was that when we're not able to express our feelings, those negative emotions start to affect our holistic health, which in turn affects how we see our bodies. So they were advocating for, of course, learning how to manage our emotions in a healthy way, and how to start using expression.
Interesting. Okay.
Um,
I do like that site.
yeah, they have, like, I love that they have like really balanced articles, because sometimes you can have a health and wellness website that sometimes they go all the way to the left with it. It gets like real Nazi about about the health and wellness. But they're holistic. You know, they talk about food, fitness, spiritual, emotional, which would be the feelings. But they talk about all of those things on their site. So I definitely like that website.
Okay. And guys, elephantjournal.com is the site we're talking about. If you have not heard of that site before, check it out, bookmark it. Awesome website. Its tagline is dedicated to the mindful life. So that may give you a little bit info about what they are all about. So I have them in my, which I need to go read. I have them in my RSS feed.
Yeah.
That I rarely get to these days, but when I get in there, they're in there.
Now, one of the things I did want to, since we're waiting for Akila, we can start digging into this topic a little bit while we wait to get reconnected with her. But one of the questions was, why do we stifle our feelings, or why do we mute ourselves? Keisha, have you ever experienced muting your feelings or stifling yourself?
Of course, and we all have. And it can be something as simple as we don't want to hurt someone else's feelings.
Yeah.
If we feel like that when we express ourselves, someone else can get hurt. When we express ourselves truly and authentically, right?
Right.
I think another part to that could be I don't know if the word ashamed is the case, but maybe we don't share ourselves in light of being vulnerable to other people. So when we share our true selves, which our expression is our own expression, our self-expression, is part of who we are authentically. So when we share that, we can be open to ridicule, judgment, all that other stuff. So we feel like, you know what, maybe I should keep my mouth closed. Maybe I shouldn't share my voice. Maybe I should not express my opinion. Maybe I shouldn't, talk this way versus that way. We all types of ways, I think, we mute ourselves. And then that's not to say that we can't be, truthful, or we can't speak our minds, but then you get into the other side of that is, do we be tactful? Do we sugarcoat things, or do we just tell the truth like it is? I mean, so there's all types of different ways that we, mute ourselves and stifle our expression.
Right. I know that this is recent holistic health for me. Like really learning to manage my feelings and my emotions, because well, first of all, I'm very strong in the feelings area. So I'm a person who's very sensitive, and Usually when it comes to a situation, my feelings come first, meaning that I feel something before I go through the whole logical process. So for a long time, it would feel kind of overwhelming. You know, like something would come up, like say anger would come up, and the immediate thing's like, okay, I'm really, really pissed off right now. And it's just like, okay, that's all I could see. It's almost like this big cloud of emotions. And I didn't know how to navigate through it. So when it was in an unhealthy situation, it would be like, okay, this is what I feel, so I'm gonna express it, I'm gonna get it out, but in an unhealthy way. Like it didn't go through any processing. I didn't ask the why am I feeling angry. I didn't ask the who am I really. I never asked those questions. It was just like, okay, whoever's in the room when I'm feeling this, you're gonna get it, right?
Hey,
So
will you warn me first? Warn me first in case I'm in the room.
That's how it used to be. And then I realized that, okay, like you were saying, there's those repercussions from sharing my feelings because now you've offended somebody or you've hurt somebody or whatever. So then it got to the point where it was on mute for me. It was like, okay, you know what? I'm just not gonna say nothing. I'm just gonna hold it back. I'm gonna hold it in. And it did get to that point of being toxic energy in my life until I learned that there's never a bad emotion. There's no such thing as a bad emotion. It's all about how you handle the emotion and how you process the emotion and then how you learn to, express it. So it took a long time to get through that because we don't really, where do we learn that? We don't learn that in school.
No, definitely not.
Most of the time we don't learn that in our families or with our friends or anything like that. So unless you really invest in like a coaching program like what Akila does at radicalselfie.com, or someone who's really going to teach you how to work through your emotions, you might not know how to handle them, and that might be the reason why people tend to put themselves on mute or stifle themselves.
Some people actually should go on mute. I'm just kidding.
Hilarious. You know what? If it's dangerous, at first, you might need. I think there's a time you need to process it for a little bit, right?
Yeah. Processing time, people.
Right. Was another go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to add to that processing time will take you back and have you do some reflection as to why you're feeling what you're feeling, to determine what it is. Just say, I'm just angry, I'm just mad, or I'm just sad, or I'm just whatever it is. Or, take that back and understand where it's coming from. I think that time that you take back before blowing up is crucial. It can help you, whatever the situation is, it can help further that along in a better manner than it can than if you just blew up. Or, a lot of times people hold things in so much, like you were mentioning earlier. You got to a point where you just, you just held stuff in. You felt like you didn't want to come out and express, what you were feeling. So what happens is it could take any little thing then, after you've held something in so long, and we know this, it could take any little pin drop where then you just blow up on that person that you were talking to at that very moment. And so that's not productive for anybody, right?
Right.
So go ahead with what you were getting ready to say.
I don't know.
You're too young to forget now.
This is why I take notes all the time. I don't know. I don't know, but you're right. That does happen. Like you wait and then it happen. You blow up or you take out that emotion. Like even when it comes to sadness, like sometimes something little will happen and then we'll go into a really deep emotion with that, and we don't even know why we're in this cloud of sadness. And a lot of times it is accumulated situations that have happened over time because we didn't deal with the emotion at the time that it was taking place.
Exactly.
She's back.
Tequila.
She's moving.
Can you hear us, Akila?
She's just sitting there looking pretty, just like.
Maybe she's getting in here.
All right, I can hear voices now.
Awesome.
Okay, just talk.
All right. I'm like, as soon as I start off. All right, well, first of all, thank you both so very much for sharing some chat and chew space with me. I feel like we're on a big comfy couch, and it's like y'all made space for me. I appreciate that. And so did you all talk at all about the article, like what the premise of the article was and how it ties into what we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, I gave an introduction about the article. I didn't introduce Radical Self, what you do or what your expertise is yet. If you want to share that with us.
Sure. So I am a writer first and foremost, and I'm a mother and a wife and an entrepreneur, and all of those things tend to work well together when I'm very present and when I'm very focused on exploring and expressing my most authentic self. And so radical self-expression, the whole movement is around that. I am in charge of reminding people that whoever they authentically are is even more important than who they've been taught, told, or coerced into being. And that life is not about little boxes of being this way from 9 to 5 and being a different way in the evening, or being this way on the weekend, or waiting for vacation. It's about a holistic approach to life and living that does not exclude how you want to feel. And so I write about that, and I teach classes on that, and I do workshops about that. And I vibe with women like you about how we can make that a very practical thing, how we can create space for authentic self-expression in our lives in its beautifully imperfect state, not when we get to the heightened state of whatever the hell them, just every day, Wednesday, 2 o'clock, that.
Awesome, thank you. So can you tell us, because we've been talking while you were gone, so it's your turn. Can you give us a little bit of your perspective? We talked a little bit about, first of all, why we have the tendency to stifle our feelings or mute ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's such a powerful one there. I think that one is, I don't think that is a human tendency. I think it is taught. And I think that it is taught consistently. But that's very different to me from a tendency. Our tendency is to believe ourselves. If you're around, as you know, you were in education, and you still are, just in a different way. But you were in early childhood education, and you know that when you're dealing with young minds and young people, their tendency, their default is not to like do what you want them to do. True. Their default is to feel good, to actively feel good. So that's where we start. But then our teachers, not if Ivy's our teacher, but if we have other teachers, they say you need to sit down, because I know you were like notorious for taking your kids outside of the classroom to be outdoors and have them be more comfortable. But most teachers are going to say sit inside, right? And put your finger over your mouth when you're walking down the hallway. There's this routine that is about convenience for the adults. And so we acquiesce over time, and that manifests itself as the type of things that the article talks about. So we're taught that, and that's where it shows up.
Can you tell us a little bit about your perspective on the article and some of the things that stood out for you in reference to feelings and expression, the lack thereof, or the need for it?
Yeah, great question, because it's both. It's definitely the lack thereof and the need for it. I think one of the things that stuck out for me, maybe the most, is the synergy between our physical body and our subtle body. So the physical body, as the article talked about, you know, how your metabolism is affected by things like stress in your life. And if you are inauthentic, you're constantly in a state of stress because you're going against your natural grain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to manifest itself in physical dis-ease, right? And they talked about that. So the connection between what happens in your subtle body, which is the touchy-feely space, and how that manifests itself in your physical body. So we are so separated from spirituality that we think of it as this heightened state of being that you go on a retreat, you know, or do something drastic and you get to. But if we can look at it from a more from a simpler space, I think that is how we could reconnect with the connection between our physical body and our subtle body. And then we start to prioritize our feelings. And then we stop taking so many things personally. We start to be more compassionate to the people around us and towards ourselves. We start to recognize that this same person that we might work with, we have no problem with them from like after lunch, but before lunch, there's an issue. We start to realize, oh, that's not that person. That's because I am trying to be all peoply and shit, and I really need to like relax for the first few hours. It makes you a more present person.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to prioritize how you want to feel, and when you become more present, it's not just about you, because we don't operate in a vacuum. We start to realize our interactions with other people, and we start to realize what we can do towards the feelings we prefer to have. And that's what I thought the article really did a great job of addressing, and what I agree with, and what I think is so profound. The idea that as many things that are going on, like the genetically modified foods and stressful relationships, and things that are going on the planet, like black children being hunted by law enforcement, and women being treated certain ways, and all these negatives that are going on. If we are self-aware, and if we make the connection between our physical body and our subtle body, we can manage the feelings around those, and we can treat each other better, so we can heal, as we go through life.
Yeah. I know one of the things that stuck out for me when you just said that was like when you know how you want to feel, and when you're aware of your feelings, even at particular times of the day. Like, I am not a morning person, so I finally it took me years to realize that, because like you're saying, we're conditioned. You go to school early in the morning, you go to work at a specific time in the morning. Like, everybody has these expectations of when you're supposed to be on at these certain hours of the morning. And when I learned that about myself, that I wasn't a morning person, I was able to articulate that to friends and families and those that love me. So, if I spent the night at my sister's house or something, well, we both were the same. So we know, even when we were roommates together, we get up and we didn't speak. And if we had a sleepover or something, and girlfriends, they'd be like, you guys don't talk about, no talking in the morning. We knew, like, we would get up, go in the kitchen, get our orange juice, whatever, and gradually we would come into talking later on. But I had to tell people that, so if I were to stay at your house, I'm not that, don't come to me in the morning, good morning, like, I'm gonna just look at you crazy.
Okay, so Ivy, when we get together, I'm sorry, boo, but that's gonna be me.
I know. I already know.
There's always one person in the group. Ivy, I'm with you. I cannot, and I actually don't mind when people are that way. Just I don't want it. Like I'm saying, that I don't want to be in, you know what I'm saying? Do you? When I'm going to do me in at 11:15-ish, then we're like jazz hands. Yeah.
So I got to be by myself from until 11:15.
11:15. That's like half the morning.
Okay, all right. I understand. I respect that.
We can work something out. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
But I realized that it helped me, like, avoid conflicts. Like, once I could tell my family that they knew Because if you keep coming to me and talking to me, it's first thing in the morning. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. I don't have an
Yep.
attitude. It's just morning, and I'm not ready. I'm not,
Yep.
not ready. I'm
And
not ready to
and
process.
that's so good because then you get an opportunity to articulate that so that the people who, if they care about that, people like our mamas and our friends and our partners who care about that, you have an opportunity to articulate your authentic feelings to them, and then they can embrace that. And also, equally important, you get the opportunity to stop fighting against yourself. Because for
Hmm.
some of us, this whole idea, there's this church of what is well, right? Ivy, you and I talked about that as you were enlightening me, on this whole idea of what it meant, just the different nuances of body image and this idea of everybody wanting to be a certain way and even caring about wellness and living for a long time and all of those things everybody claims is what should matter, right? In that same space, there's this notion of like how we should be. Like, you should want to be a morning person, you should want to be up with the sun because that's how you get your hustle on and da da da.
Hmm.
There, all of those subtle nudges are there, sometimes not so subtle, for us to be a certain way. So when you come to terms with that recognition, you can say to yourself, it's okay that I'm not in a warm, happy place because naturally my body doesn't want to get up at this time. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with me, and I don't need to change it. I just need to manage my emotions in the morning by articulating to people I care about or distancing myself. You can manage your life better when you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the signs that we can help our audience know? And by the way, audience, if you all have questions for Akila or things that are coming up for you while we're talking, you can hit the Q&A box and type it in, and it'll come up, and then we'll be able to see the question. And we do have a question that I can bring up later that came in off of SurveyMonkey. But what are some of the things that we can look out for? Because sometimes you can go through life and not even know that you're repressing your feelings or that you're muted or that you're not expressing yourself.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I don't know. If you're not having the symptoms of it, if you're not feeling stifled, if things aren't coming up in your life, if you're not having instances with different people that bring you back to the same emotional space, perhaps all is well. I don't know. Because for me, the work shows up in my life. The women that I coach, the women and men who appreciate my writing and what I write about, we all come from that same, the similarity in the radical selfie community is that we've all recognized signs of that mutedness. And it feels urgent that we need to address it. We may not know exactly what it is, and some of us aren't even interested. Like, we feel like that's less important than knowing that it is. If that makes sense. So it's just a community of people who are constantly seeing um, the benefits of and the potential caveats of being muted. And so we work towards exploring what feels muted, which for some of us, it could be things like religion. That's one that's come up for me a lot right now, and a lot of my work right now. My current painting is centered around that, the idea of spiritual self-expression, and that so many of us come from a religious household or a background, and that either we reject the idea now, or the idea needs to look different for us to really see ourselves in it. We need something different than what we were taught. But then there's so much guilt around that. And so for some of us, that feels muted. It feels like we want to explore God in different ways, but we don't know how, or we're not sure if that's okay. And so it gives you opportunity to be among a group of people who are saying, not only is it okay, it's important for you to have an authentic connection with anything, including yourself. Sometimes you got to feel that out for yourself. Same thing with a job. Society says get a stable one and go this route, and then save up and do that. But then there's some of us, including those of us on the call, who say, yeah, but here's the thing. Like, this other thing is really, really pulling me, and I'm really interested, and I'm going to go to conferences, and I'm going to start a blog, and I'm going to start a radio show, or I'm going to start a hangout. You know, I'm going to really do whatever I can. Those are the people who make sense in this community, because we're all urgently wanting to feel really comfortable in our own skin and encourage other people who want to do that same thing.
And I think in a nutshell, you hit it on the head with having an urge to feel like there's something else that you need to say, whether it's mentally, physically, spiritually, and however you want to get that out. I love that you said that. And, you know, some people may be wondering, well, what does that feel like? And I think that feeling can be different, but, you know, with everybody. But I think in the end, it boils down to you feel like there is something that is incomplete. Not in the sense that you need something else to complete you, but in the sense that you're looking, and I love that you used the word exploration, that you're wanting to explore something new. And
exactly.
Something.
Yeah, exactly that. And this, it is the exploration, because one of the things that, like one of my own things that I have to work on a lot is releasing expectation, you know, around something. And when I come from a space of curiosity and of like, this is exactly what it should look like because I worked this hard for this long, you know, I go through all of that stuff. But when I can practice releasing the expectation and come from a place of curiosity and exploration, first of all, it's a lot less stressful. You know, I do it all the time when I write books. You know, I write books a lot, and I plan to keep writing books. But it doesn't feel stressful for me because I don't feel like, okay, this is the writing process, and this is what I must do, and this is how. No, I feel it up. I'm like, oh, spiritual self-care, what that is? Like, and I really just like, I research and I read. So when I'm writing, then other books come up. So I'm like, oh, that's another book. Oh, that's an article. I'm gonna shop this article, and I just like repurpose this moment because so many things come up, and I feel like everybody should have that experience with whatever it is that they're into. Like, you should be able to not feel you should feel really comfortable in your skin when you're doing the thing that you're really into. But for a lot of us, that's not the case because of all the guilt around what it should or shouldn't look like.
I had to have a church wave on that one over there.
You know, we should have another. We definitely should have another show talking about guilt, because personally, been there, done that. You know, and I think a lot of us have, especially with the expectations of others on our heads. It's like, if I don't do this, so and so is not going to blank, fill in the blank, or what have you. You know,
that's
so
true.
Yes. Been there, done that. Definitely one for another show.
Agreed.
So, Akila, here's something I want to explore too really quickly is, I remember in high school, kids would come to school with so much on their shoulders and just all this weight from home. And it's not even 8:30 yet, you know what I mean? And there's so many issues at home. There's so much going on. And even, I want to say even worse, but it's probably the same with kids nowadays. When they come to school, there are so many issues on their head before they even can start to learn, before the bell rings. You know, what can, for those of us who are listening, and parents who are listening, and people in general, what can they do to help these kids these days understand their expression and how they can be unmuted so that they can have a better space in the schools and amongst their peers?
Yeah. Wow, that is such an important part of everything, because when we talk about children, like, they're framing, they are the people who are creating the world, like, quite literally, and what it's going to look like. And so if they are weighted down, then we are weighted down, you know, outside of it being unfair to them. So I love that we're going to be talking about something in that direction. And one of the things I think we can do for children, not just our children if we're parents, what we can do is respect children. I was reading something on everyday feminism, and as you both probably know, I write for them. And I really, really respect the work that they're doing. They get that radical selfie stamp of approval for shout. Because they just have things that really, like, I'll pull my daughters and I'll be like, we'll spend like hours reading articles on there. And I saw this thing called adultism. And I was like, really? Another ism? What is that one? You know, like, honestly, that's where my mind went. And I started reading it, and I went from this face, like the whatever face, to, oh my God, no, really, really, this is a thing. And and the notion of it is that children are maybe the most oppressed group out there, because there's race, there's gender, but there's also the fact that they are marginalized because they're considered less than. They're considered vulnerable, they're considered less knowledgeable generally. You know, meanwhile, that might not be the truth, because as you said, there's so much going on at home that you can have a 10 or 11-year-old that has far more life experience than a 37-year-old, right? But they're still treated with that same, you know, microscope. And then in school, you're taught kind of to the middle factor generally, because you have overcrowded classrooms, and so they're stifled. And so if you can start out by, when you're having a conversation with a child, try as much as you can to meet them where they are and not where you think they probably are. Like, give them an opportunity to show up as themselves, and then deal with them from there. That's the first thing, right? And that's a really powerful one. I try to practice that one a lot as a parent, and it gives me it gives me the room where my girls can help me to raise them, instead of me just kind of feeling around in the dark doing what I think is the right thing to do. I try to really see who they are. Yeah. So that, Keisha, I think is a great way to start. Really try to meet children where they are and not where you think they probably are. Give them space.
Gotcha. That makes complete sense. I love it. I like that idea. Awesome. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's just something that's on my head a lot when I know kids' situations can be horrible before breakfast.
Absolutely.
And that impacts. Yeah, we're talking about our bodies. That impacts their bodies. That impacts every part of their life and their learning experiences.
Their ability to learn, exactly. Their desire even to learn. And that's why, too, more of these programs need to be focused on that emotional wellness component and the self-expression components for young people. And I do know some people who are doing work in that space now that I'm trying to connect with, because you're so right. It's important that they also feel empowered to stand up for themselves and say, hey, wait a minute. You know, like, just to feel confident in their own skin in that way, and they may not be getting that nurturing at home.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was a good one.
That's all I had.
That was a good one. Akila, I'd like to hear from you, definitely, since we've talked about some of the challenges. I'd love to hear, like, some practical steps that we can give the audience for how they can begin today, like you said, just on a regular every day, to start risking expression, to start moving forward in expression.
Yeah. So I have a resource for you, and I'm going to say some of the things from the resource. One of the main things is to give yourself permission to explore. As Keisha pointed out, that idea of exploration can be so empowering, because it just opens it up. Like, it doesn't have to be one particular thing. You're just seeing what you see. In the areas of your life where you feel stifled, give yourself permission by saying, I believe in mirror work, by literally standing in front of the mirror in the morning and looking yourself in the eyes. And it can feel kind of creepy sometimes, or giggly. That's another one. A lot of people say you start giggling. But look yourself in the eye and say something to affirm how you want to feel. Say, I'm curious about such and such, and I'm going to explore that today. Like, you know, it's this idea of nurturing the feelings that you want to have. That's something you can do. You can also start looking at rituals, creating little things that you do each day to reinforce how you want to feel. So in the resource that I have for you, it's a free ebook that's based on my course around simple spiritual rituals. I talk about simple things like washing your hands. Hopefully everybody washes their hands at least once a day. So that's at least one opportunity for you to be present, with yourself. And during that time, there are things you can say and things you can do to remind yourself about how you want to feel, or to maybe release a negative thing that happened that you want to distance yourself from. So just start creating ways to nurture yourself towards your desired feelings using simple things that you do every day. Yeah.
I like that. That resonates with me because even when it comes to self-care and body relationship, like those are some of the very same things that help us, which is what the topic is about tonight too, with connecting with ourselves, connecting with our bodies, and rituals is one of the easiest things, because a lot of us are already used to having some sort of ritual or routine in anything anyway, so it's a little bit easier to implement those things.
Exactly.
And it helps us to prioritize ourselves, because a lot of times we have rituals, but it's for everything else and for everyone else.
And we do them on autopilot. We're not even that present. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that.
One of the ways I like to implement a new ritual, like mirror talk, which I do all the time too, right? Is like we talk about all the things that we regularly do, that we do all the time, every day, changing our underwear, brushing our teeth, showering, whatever, what have you. Just take one of those things. And for me, it's brushing my teeth because, I got this whole facial teeth brushing ritual thing I do. So
I love it.
I'm at the mirror for a minute, right? So it's like, dude, while I'm standing here brushing my teeth, I can do my calf raises. I can also do some mirror talk. I can do some positive thinking. It's a whole bunch of things I can do within that 2 minutes.
I love it. That's church right there. You just gathered a whole bunch of Keishas, a whole bunch of self instead of church. And that's exactly what it's about. Bring all of you to the table and, do a little bit of a seance, have a little bit of church, and then send you out on your way, because that's how you nurture yourself.
And it doesn't take them much more time.
Nope, absolutely not. Because as you say, you could do it amongst, and then the more you do it, just like anything else that you enjoy, the more you find time to do it. So you find out you might start out having to make time for it, but then after a while, it'll just become what you do. Which is great, because then you can ground yourself. That's what this whole thing is about. See, a lot of people think it's like this out there ethereal stuff, but it really isn't. It really is about the idea that we can feel as good as we want to feel as often as possible. And when we feel good, we treat other people better. We're more authentic with ourselves. We attract different things in our lives. We're motivated to work smarter in different ways. So we create this ecology of wellness when we start with ourselves. So I feel like that's important to say, because I sometimes we put this in a very reactive space, like we wait until we're sick, or we wait until something shows up. And if you do it proactively, not only can you thrive, but you can create a community of people who are thriving in that wellness space. And it really starts with self.
And it really is about that, and I call it a threesome with mindset, perception, and gratitude, right? Because the way that we perceive...
church again.
Serious is like, what is our attitude about something? That creates what we perceive and how things come into our filter when we see them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, I may have mentioned this before on the show, but one of my favorite quotes is Wayne Dyer's, "Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change," right? And so even just all of what we're talking about, when we take a look, right, if we're this focused on something and we close out our peripherals and we're really only using this little microscope that we're looking into, there's a lot of stuff we can miss, right?
Exactly.
And so our mindset, our perception, and then ultimately gratitude, because where gratitude comes in is once you can change the way you look at things, then the reality around you changes in such a way that you can actually be grateful for the lessons you're learning. You can be grateful for the way your life is leading, and not to say that everything is going to be peachy keen and rosy. No, but it's going to be when you get through those tough times, or when those other things come up in your life that are unexpected. You're going to be more easily put in a situation where you can say, you know what, let me take a step back and figure out what I need to do, versus being, like you said, in reactive mode and pulling your hair out and being stressful, and then having this dis-ease in our body from all the stress we're having with the situation, right? So I think that once it's all about, being proactive, being retrospective. This is where journaling can come in. This is where, again, you have to create the time. We all have the same time in the day. And so when people say, I don't have time for extra 5 minutes of meditation, or I don't have extra time to do positive talk in the mirror, I don't have time for that. Really, you're in the mirror every day, all day, I'm sure.
And then you might just not be ready for it. I mean, for some, I think you got to be, I think it's important to just kind of be where you are, because if you don't feel like you have time, then you won't have time. I think this type of work is for those of us who know that we are going to make the time, and the idea is how deep can the exploration go? What can I do about how I want to feel? How can I allow myself to feel however I feel? Just being okay with yourself every step of the way, and then respecting other people enough to give them that space too. And as you said, just creating the time to allow yourself to explore. And really, for me, that's what the work is about, because it makes me a better businesswoman. It makes me a better partner for my husband. It makes me a better mother. It makes me a better friend. So my whole community is quite literally connected to my feelings, and I am to theirs. So let's make sure we're nurturing that. We're doing that spiritual self-care.
Yes. Let's do it.
And sometimes what came up for me, Keisha, is that like sometimes, and I think Akila said this earlier, is that we can be in default mode with things, and sometimes we're just so used to saying I don't have time, or you can get into the routine, I don't have time, or whatever. And I know one thing I've noticed when I'm coaching people one-on-one is when you ask those why questions, then that really makes people pause and think, and it brings back, like what you said, Akila, it's like the curiosity rather than the judgment. Okay, you don't have time, why don't you have time? And then when you sit and say, okay, or what, I don't have time to meditate, well, why don't you have time to meditate? Well, this and this and that. So really, it's not a time issue, it's more of a priority issue, and not judging someone around their priorities, but it's like, okay, getting to that honesty with yourself. Is it really that you don't have time to meditate, or whatever it is, color, paint, whatever it is that you want to explore? What is it really about that's keeping you away from that thing? And when you start asking those, start asking those questions and finding your truth, rather than just being in default mode, because it's easy to say I can't, or I can't afford it, I don't have time, or because a lot of times it's more about a shifting of the priorities rather than I can't.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
I did want to make sure that we got this. If you all didn't mind, we had a question that came through.
Sure, bring it on.
And we do accept anonymous questions, you all. I always post a link in the events page, so you can always send in a question anonymous if you like to. This question says, I would like to ask, what has been the reception since you came to this new view of self? Have those around you been able to understand and encourage the change, or have you found that some have been haters and therefore you have had to leave them behind? Do I need to read that again, or did you guys?
No.
Okay.
Not for me. I don't know if Keisha.
Did you need me to read it again?
No. Go ahead. I understood the question.
Okay.
Well, for me, it wasn't really like a new way. It wasn't like it was this and then it became this. It was very gradual. And it doesn't even feel new. I just feel like any other human being just going through my evolutionary process, you know, like living and learning and becoming more present and more comfortable in my own skin and realizing where my ego has been getting in the way or realizing what relationships I've outgrown. And, you know, it really has just been about that. So I totally don't subscribe to the hater thing. I actually think that's funny. It makes me giggle every time. Because haters are gonna hate, okay, drivers are gonna drive. And it's just, I don't like understand what the focus is. Of course you're gonna have people who connect with what it is that you do or who you are, and then you'll have others that don't. And I do get that some people go maybe a little bit further with their don'tness, and it's like they don't just not connect to your work. They might make it a point to address it, but okay, and then what happens? You know, like I feel a lot more drawn to what something is than what it is not. You know, like I would like to be defined by who I am and not who I am not. And so I try to approach things that way. That's my answer. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I'll add that, yes, there will be relationships that you outgrow based on change. Everybody, regardless of how they're paired, whether it's a friendship, a business relationship, whatever it is not always meant to be lifetime, right? We already know that inherently, right? It's just that when those breakups occur based on growth or non-growth of one of the parties, that's when, you know, the supposed haters or what have you will come into play. And so your decision from there is this relationship still beneficial for me? You know, there are some people that maybe you don't just hang out with them often anymore. You know, when you hang out, it's brief, it's quick. I have those relationships, right? But then you have those newly formed relationships based on your new ideals or based on your new behavior. Then you get new people into your circle because you're attracting what you are. Right, and so you look back and say, oh, and even if they're familiar, I know we've talked about this before too. Even if the relationship is a familiar one, you may have to let that go too, even if it's just for a little while, you know. And then once people get used to who you are, and they like it or they don't, but then they get to decide if they want to hang around you anymore or if they want to be in their presence of you anymore. But you don't worry about that. That's not your problem. It's not your issue. What you want to do is continue to move forward in your truth and your expression and your path and all the stuff that we talked about tonight so that you can be a better you, not you being for somebody else, right? So I think if you take that ideal and say, okay, the way that I'm going this way and people start falling off, that's a good thing, right? Because you don't want people in your space that's not going to make you a better you. That's my answer to that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Hear, hear.
I think for me, what I had to learn that worked for me was I had to realize that I had to teach people about the changes that were happening with me and not make the automatic assumption that they would just get it. I felt like a lot of times major changes were going on with me, and sometimes we just expect the people around us, especially people who have been around us for years or you know, all our lives, or family, to just kind of fall in line with this, you know, with this evolution. And it just came up for me at one point that felt unfair because I hadn't taken the time to communicate. Take, for example, like we were talking about the morning thing. You know, for a long time, I didn't know I was a morning person. So how the hell am I supposed to expect them to know, just, you know, fall in line with me being a morning person if I didn't even know that about myself? So here I come to this stage of, you know, knowing myself better, understanding myself, and being like, I am a night person, you know, and then everybody around me is just supposed to know that through osmosis. You know, I felt like it was my I don't want to say duty, but it was
Yeah, but
something
you
that,
felt a sense of responsibility
there you
to do
go,
that. Yeah,
responsibility
yeah.
to communicate, okay, this is where I'm going now, this is what's happening, especially if there was major resistance to something. And what worked for me was when that communication happened, especially with people who really truly are supportive and love me, that when I took the time to communicate those things, not saying that they were automatically on board. Some people were cheerleaders, some
Yeah.
weren't, but that at least they
Yeah.
knew, and it could give them a chance to process it and digest, what was going on, but not to come to the
Absolutely.
point of being exclusive, because sometimes we feel like, this is how I am. Get with it, don't get gone.
Right. You're like, I'm having my own life over here. I don't even know
Right.
what's
I
going
don't
on
need
too.
you no way.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and I
You're a
know
hater. You're a hater.
this.
No, I just
Right.
don't know what's going on. Yeah.
I know this because this has been the evolution of Ivy. I was like, look, you don't get with it, get gone. Like, I don't care. I don't need you, kind of thing. But
Right.
I had to be like, okay, explain to people.
Tone down
Like,
the
this is
radical. Yeah,
what
that's
I
it.
learned. And then sometimes it can actually help people be enlightened in their own life as well, and say,
Yeah,
oh, I
leading by
never thought of
example.
that. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, very true, very true. I love that. I love that you brought that up. I say that to my girls all the time, especially my oldest. I'm like, you fighting the other way. Turn down the radical, because it's like sometimes you get it, and just like you said, like this me get with it,
Right.
and you're just like, excuse me, can I have 22 minutes? And then what is it now? What's happening? But you're so right. Sometimes it's not that they're being anything, but just misinformed
Yes.
or not knowing what's happening with you. And that's why I brought up the ego thing, because that's something that I had to learn, and I think I'm still really dealing with this notion that it's not always personal. Like, even if it feels like, well, pretty personal to me, and I'm a person, you still sometimes got to check in and say, hey, did I communicate that? Like, just like you said, whying yourself into a really safe and honest space. Why do I feel like that? But what did I say? Then what did she say? Did I communicate that? I don't think I
Yeah.
did. I think I walked up in there, like crip walking and not even like paying attention to the actual lack of dialogue. So yeah, great point. Great point.
Thank you. Did either one of you have anything else that has come? That was the only question actually that was submitted from the anonymous page. But is there anything else coming up for you all before we start wrapping up?
No, I just want to
Not for
say
me.
again, thank you, Akila. So grateful to have you.
You're so welcome. This was awesome, and I'm glad I was able to get on this doggone double Dutch internet. This is one of the very few caveats of island life, right? Like being up here and where we are is like really literally up a hill, and so the internet is like sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm not. So I'm just glad I was able to get on and just share in this space because everybody knows I'm an Ivy fan, and I'm really getting to know Keisha and loving, just your vibrance and positivity that like we
Thank
don't have enough of that. You're welcome, boo. So I was so happy to be here with you both.
Thank you so much. Like, I just appreciate how supportive you are, and just the energy that you always bring. It always feels warm, but it always also feels like that push for you to keep on going. So
Yes, thank you for appreciating the push. Not everybody. The push has a lot of haters. So I just surround myself with the people who appreciate it. So thank you for being that.
now, before I did put up the link for your the link that you wanted to share with us for the
Thank
70/30.
you.
You want to
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that? You all should see the link, and you can actually click right on it right now
Awesome.
on the
Oh, good.
screen.
I was holding off. I wasn't sure if we were going to have time with all the technological glitches, but two things. One of them is the 70/30 free video training series around personal power. And essentially, I really, as we talked about these little boxes of being this way from 9 to 5 and being that way, this idea of work-life balance, I reject it completely. I think it's a myth. And I think instead of balance, what we should strive for is a harmony. Like, you should know how much time you need to spend in strategy mode and how much time you need to spend in soul work mode in all the aspects of your day. And that training series just takes you through some videos that help you get really present with what it means to reclaim your personal power in your life. And so that's the radicalselfie.com/7030 link. And then the other one, from now until March 8th, you have a free download of my new ebook. And it really just talks about simple spiritual rituals. As we were talking about, spirituality doesn't need to be this, thing with Shangri-La and, Buddhist priests. You can create ways to center yourself every day, and that book is going to offer you a bunch of examples and activities and prompts for centering yourself, being your own guru, so to speak. So enjoy it. It's free.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to partake in some of that myself.
Yes, please do. Please do.
If you all aren't on our newsletter list, make sure you visit chatchewingyou.com and sign up for the newsletter. And we can definitely, if you weren't able to, for whatever reason, technology is quirky, we see that, get the book download tonight. We can send those links to you in our next newsletter that's coming out from Akila, so you can
Y'all
have
are
that.
so good to your viewers.
They're spoiled. They're spoiled.
I'm one of them, so I appreciate the being spoiled. Thank y'all.
And also on our list, we will send out what our next idea and topic is going to be about in our next show. So you want to stay tuned for that, so you can be notified and RSVP and all that good stuff. And when you RSVP, even if you're on our Google page, you want to make sure to click yes, so that you can be reminded to watch it later if you can't watch it live. We don't care. Send in your questions. Just be sure to tune in and have your chew, like I didn't have today.
All right, ladies. Thank you, Akila, for being here again. And like Keisha said, we've had a great time. You all, if you have any ideas of what you'd like to see or any topics that you want us to discuss, definitely send that to us, an email, leave it on the website, and we can definitely take those things into consideration for our next shows that are coming up. But until the next show.
Peace and love.
Hey guys, it's your girls Keisha and Ivy for another episode of Chat Chewing You, the interactive wellness show that promotes the concepts of self-care, holistic health, and confident, energetic living. Yes, we about that holistic, healthy life. So we have a special guest today, our girl, Akila Richards, who's going to teach us how to unmute our self-expression and how our feelings weigh down our bodies. And I know some of you guys probably feel that way or have before. So we're going to delve into that topic. I am excited. I hope you are excited. Say hey. Where's Akila? Where is she? All right, so while we wait to get Akila back, before we get started, this is Chat Chew and You. So I hope you have something to chew on while you're watching. And unfortunately, while I'm talking, I don't even have anything today. It's time. I tell you, time has just flown by today, and I did not get a chance to even grab a snack. But I do have my water. I need to get that in. I got a whole other 32 ounces to go, so I'm chugging while we're talking tonight. What about you, Ivy?
I always have these unique varieties, right? So I have some chicken breast and it's a wild rice quinoa mix kind of thing going on.
That sounds delicious.
And so basically what the article was asserting was that when we're not able to express our feelings, those negative emotions start to affect our holistic health, which in turn affects how we see our bodies. So they were advocating for, of course, learning how to manage our emotions in a healthy way, and how to start using expression.
Interesting. Okay, okay.
Um,
I do like that site.
yeah, they have, like, I love that they have like really balanced articles, because sometimes you can have a health and wellness website that sometimes they go all the way to the left with it. It gets like real Nazi about about the health and wellness. But they're holistic. You know, they talk about food, fitness, spiritual, emotional, which would be the feelings. But they talk about all of those things on their site. So I definitely like that website.
Okay. And guys, elephantjournal.com is the site we're talking about. If you have not heard of that site before, check it out, bookmark it. Awesome, awesome website. Its tagline is dedicated to the mindful life. So that may give you a little bit.
Then I have some red wine, and I have searched everywhere for this wine, guys. Okay, this is important to me, so I have to tell you. It's this sweet red wine from South Africa, and I had it one time at a wine tasting in Atlanta, and I have been searching for this wine for years, and I finally found it around here in the DMV. Hello, DC Metro area. And so I'm excited that I finally got it. So I poured me a glass before the show, and of course I have water nearby too, because I always need that in my life.
Okay, all right. Now, if I see you chugging a bottle, there will be no judgment whatsoever.
Yeah, I poured. I left the actual bottle of wine in the refrigerator, and I just pour me, a sip. But yeah, I'm excited that I found my wine.
Awesome. All right, so next time I see you and I'm in your area, you gotta let me taste it. I'm not really a wine person, but
Really?
you said it's good. I know. I don't really know much about wines or anything except I like sweet stuff.
Okay.
So I don't know.
And red wines are sometimes they're strong, or they're really, really dry. And this is a sweet red wine. So this is for people who like yourself, like that sweet taste, but you get the benefit of the red wine. So
Awesome.
it's cool wine.
Awesome. All right, all right. I'll be sipping on some of that one of these days then.
Akila is here. She is back. I definitely want to tell you all that I was so excited to have her be a part of the show. When I read this article, and the moment I saw that it was talking about expression, feelings, stifling your expression, muting, I already knew I already knew who should be on this topic. So I reached out to Akila, and I asked her was she feeling it, and she read it, and she definitely said that it resonated with her. So I said, hey, Keisha, what do you think about Akila being here? And she was definitely feeling it. So that's how Akila got here. I want her to explain to you all what she does as over on radicalselfie.com. And the website is actually up. If you're watching live, you can go ahead and click on the link and visit while you're watching the show. Keila, welcome. Can she hear me? She got stuck again.
Is she frozen? Frozen.
Yeah, she looks good frozen though.
I know, right?
Because YouTube and Google are infamous for catching you on that really crazy frozen look, or you have that real, your mouth is open or something like that.
Yeah, one eye closed, looking crazy. Right.
It all, like, whenever you get ready to get a YouTube cover, it's like they pick the craziest expression for the YouTube cover. I don't understand why that happens, but hey, such as YouTube, such as Google.
So I'll tell you what, until we get Akila back, as a matter of fact, first let's tell people I'm not even, hating or anything at this moment, but she is somewhere I would want to be. Right now I'm in St. Louis and it is freezing, and Akila over there with her tank top on is in warm weather. Right. In the Caribbean or something. which is probably why her connection issues are a little iffy. But hopefully we get her back on so she can discuss the topic and everything with us. But tell me about the article that you read, Ivy. Let's start there then.
Okay, sure. The article was on Elephant Journal. I know if everyone is familiar with that website, and it was talking about the correlation between stifling our feelings, which would mean repressing our feelings, not using expression when it comes to our feelings, hiding them from other people, and how that's related to our relationship with our bodies, our body image, our health.